He had been invited to the party, held in a ground-floor unit of a 3-story apartment building 2 blocks east of the theater, by a neighbor, on the condition that he bring a foxy chick. They passed inspection at the door and stepped inside a darkened living room, its only contents a shabby blue sofa, a poster of Liechtenstein's Wham! And a stereo playing 8 Miles High by the Byrds. Candles strewn about cast a wavering light over 15 or 20 students in all manner of dress. Frumpy skirts, tattered sweaters, a boy in a jacket and tie, a girl in a checked mini and bowler hat. A frayed, thin blanket on the floor accommodated 8. The rest of them milled about, grooving to the music. On the couch, a vacant-faced preppy tapped a bongo wedged between his knees. A stringy-haired campus pothead named Dexter lay couchant on the blanket, where he expertly fashioned joints with a roller donated by a luring park pusher who sold him the grass. For $5 a dozen, Dexter informed them. He passed each one around as it came online. A cannabis-infused haze filled the unventilated room. Its musky smell clung to David's shirt. He took Jackie's hand and squeezed onto the blanket next to the neighbor who'd invited them, Paul, a florid redhead who offered Jackie a hit.
"You weren't kidding about bringing a fox, were you?"
he said to David, while looking at Jackie. She winked and cupped her hand around the joint, took a ferocious, cheek-puckering drag, and passed it to David like a precious baton. Though it may have appeared otherwise from his stiff-fingered pinch, David's marijuana maidenhead had already been claimed. One Saturday last summer, after tacking down the last shingle of a side job re-roofing Paul's duplex, Paul met him at the bottom of the ladder with a lighted doobie. Under his neighbor's instruction, he drew smoke and held it until his lungs burned.
"Inhaling hits your brain faster than shooting up,"
Paul had assured him, like a car salesman touting a Corvette over a Barracuda. David had felt the promised buzz within minutes. His body tingled, and by the time the once fat joint had been reduced to a skimpy roach, he understood things he never even considered before. How 10,000 Greeks enveloped 40,000 Persians at Marathon. That the long, slow death march of the English monarchy began in a meadow named Runnymede. How Rousseau begot Marx. He'd climbed back up the ladder, stood at the edge of the roof, and contemplated what it would be like to leap into the crepuscular splendor, high above it all, to see the full chromatic spectrum with blinding clarity, in Technicolor. Only Paul's hysterical giggles had yanked him back to the here and now, and kept him from plunging off the roof like a drunken platform diver. He backed away from the precipice and eased down the ladder. But what he'd learned was that the mildly hallucinogenic effect of marijuana was, for him, not so mild. He took the joint Jackie had passed him and held it to his lips, pretending to take a hit without actually clamping his lips around it. After a moment, he let loose a plosive gust, as if at the limit of his hold, while the rest of the room toked away for real. Dexter presided over the magic blanket like a dazed magus speaking runic phrases, compulsively recycling every ratty-looking roach. Jackie sucked each communal joint and quaffed the sweet red wine being passed around, with the focus of a rat in a Skinner box. Eyes reddened, tongues loosened, Jackie scrambled to her feet. "Victuals, people! I need victuals!" she said to no one in particular. She charged off to the kitchen with her blonde mane trailing like a palomino's tail. Talk turned to something called the New Left. David listened closely enough to gather that the New Left, of which Students for a Democratic Society seemed an integral part, was a movement of young radicals committed to a new communist paradigm, without the Stalinist purges of the old left. They started in on Vietnam, but to his relief became distracted by a debate over Simon and Garfunkel's Sounds of Silence. To Dexter, an album of sublime importance, and the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, which Dexter dismissed as surf crap. This David could not resist. Sloop John B. is hardly surf music, he interrupted. And Pet Sounds is way more complex than Sounds of Silence. Dexter stuck an unsteady finger into the air. Simon and Garfunkel are poets, man. David shook his head. Yeats is a poet. Simon and Garfunkel are singer-songwriters. And Sloop John B. was lifted from a West Indies folk song made known by Carl Sandburg, if you like poets. Dexter got on all fours and squinted at him. What the fuck is with this Sloop John B. rap? Do I even know you? Jackie reappeared with her headband askew and eyes rimmed red. She gave a scampish grin and shoved Dexter's shoulder, tipping him onto his side. Hey, knock it off! He yelped. He looked up at her and blinked. Else I'll cut you off and you can find your own pot. I take full responsibility for David, she told him. What can I say? He's cute. Dexter righted himself. To you, maybe, he mumbled. To me, he's a redneck. She knelt beside David, ran her fingers through his hair, and murmured in his ear. Dexter's getting on my nerves. Take me back to your place.